Hi, Ron MacLean and Fred Smith. You probably know, or hopefully you do, me from Hockey Night in Canada, Rogers Hometown Hockey and Olympics, all that stuff. You might not know Fred as well. Fred is the head of a great golf tournament we're holding here in Milton for veterans helping veterans. And Fred, you can explain the genesis of how you came to today.
Uh, I was a soldier in the Canadian Forces, come from a military family, joined the 1st Battalion Royal Canadian Regiment, and 7 years into my service with the military, I went into the Golan Heights in Syria in a peacekeeping mission. Down there, I saw some pretty bad stuff, and the medical doctor decided it was time to get me out in a hurry, and they handed me my medical file and flew me out on the first aircraft out. I was injured. I saw some very traumatic things. I come back to Canada, and that was in the 1980, and basically I was unfit to serve because of my mental health issues. What I did is I left the military. There was no help when I got back, and I don't resent them for that today. I understand that. But what happened is I went the other way, and the way that I handled my stuff was drinking, and then it resulted in drugs. And I medicated for many years, and then about 12 years ago, my son hung himself, and I was on my way to die. I was going to kill myself, and something stopped me on the way to the bridge, where I walked into a hospital and asked for help. Right after that, I realized that I got hooked up with soldiers and got some treatment, and I realized that there was programs available for me, and they were there most of the time, and I didn't know that. So what I did is I took advantage of those programs and got the help I needed, and I still work on that daily and weekly with professionals. And I made a little prayer there that day on the way to the bridge, and that was because I was in total despair, and that was, to my maker as I know him, help me and I'll help you. And that was the prayer, and something happened to me. I went in and did the work and started moving forward. And about 8 years ago, I grabbed myself a sign and a blazer and went down to the streets to find other guys in similar situations, and found all kinds of them. And I said, well, this is what I'm going to do. And what I do is I help our homeless veterans and our veterans and their families in despair with problems. It ended up becoming Veterans Helping Veterans, and we've got people. We're a charity now, and it's growing. And our goal is to continue to work those streets and get more people involved doing it. And that's how it started, and it's going good. Ron MacLean is an old bud, and I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with his father, and we did poppies together, and we become good friends. And Ron will tell us how we got together again.
Well, we met in 1980s when I was at CKRD, a radio television station in Red Deer, Alberta, and two of my colleagues at the Broadcasting Center lived with Fred in Red Deer. So that's how we first met. And then years later, when Fred was in recovery, thanks to a priest named Father Waters, Peter Waters, who he would do Mass in Oakville, Ontario. Peter Waters is a legend in the industry of recovery. He helped Frank O'Day, Second Cup coffee shops, when he was on the street in 1971, and the list goes on, including Fred, worked with Peter Waters. And Peter would say Mass, I would go with my dad to attend the service, and there would be Fred Smith. So after about a 30-year window, I reconnected with Fred and heard about the great work that he was doing. And here today, Walton Tinchuk, our great general, will be here to address the gang after golf. We have 11 soldiers or retired soldiers who will be here, who are all in one form or another recovering from PTSD or addiction issues or some mental health issue that came from the trauma they experienced. And that's the core, right? The trauma that not only they experienced, but by extension their families experienced. And it's just a beautiful, for me, I can remember Michael Hornig was a reserve killed in Afghanistan, and he had written a letter just at the tail end and said that it's not the death of people you bemoan, it's the death of hope. And he was so proud to serve for Canada because we were about that hope. And that's what today is. It's just a wonderfully hopeful event, and great to be here for you, Fred.